In 1992, the third single, entitled Jermey, would be released from Pearl Jam's debut album. Now, this song was inspired by true events. Here on the corner of North Grove Road and Rory Drive is the home where Jermey Wade Delle would have lived at the time of the tragic event. Jermey's parents were divorced, but late March of 1990, Jermey moved into this home with his dad after years of living with his mom. Nobody really knows the reason for the sudden move, but nonetheless it happened. Now, he withdrew from the 9th grade at Bryan Adams High School and enrolled in Richardson Junior High. Before we proceed with this video, we do want to give a little bit of a warning. This video does contain details about depression and suicidal ideation, so if you are triggered by any of that, please skip this video. Now, back to our story about Jermey. Jermey moved a lot as a kid, changed schools a lot. So this led to feelings of isolation. But nonetheless, Jermey was talented and won awards for things. But he placed a lot of emphasis on his relationships with girls. He often talked about, wanting to be a father and getting married, but he did struggle with the thought of suicide and depression. This leading him to use drugs and kind of act out defiantly.
So we're here at Castle View Baptist Church in Mesquite, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. The reason we're here is because March 8th of 1990, Jermey would meet a girl named Nancy at a winter chill retreat that was actually sponsored and hosted here at Castle View Baptist. So the two would begin dating, and Nancy would really be the first big love of Jermey. Nancy was a year older, so, a little older, maybe a little more mature. And she was described as being very nice, very friendly, and not really into the drugs and or suffering from mental illness and stuff like that was plaguing Jermey's life at the time.
Young love can't last forever, unfortunately. Well, in some cases it does, but not in the case of Jermey and Nancy. In April, Nancy broke up with Jermey. This would lead him to go on with his first suicide attempt. He took a bunch of pills and was hospitalized. The facility that he was hospitalized at was Timberlawn Psychiatric Hospital. Just over there is where the hospital once sat. Now, I don't know at what point they cleared the hospital off, but they are currently out there working to clear it off and looks like build something there now.
Probably more housing. It seems like that's what they're putting everywhere now, is more neighborhoods and apartments.
Jermey would stay at the hospital for 3 months or so. He was released in July to go home and start outpatient treatment. Now, he would come back here to this hospital for his counseling and meetings and stuff like that. But it was also at this facility that Jermey ended up meeting his second girlfriend, Michelle.
July 1990, Jermey would come back here to Castle View Baptist for a summer burn retreat. He once again would meet Nancy at this very same retreat. Now, at some point during this summer retreat, he would climb to the top of a cliff and threaten to jump off. Now, he wouldn't actually jump off, but this would be suicide threat number 2. He would receive counseling from the church, but nothing really followed up from that. Then one night, he drives over to Nancy's house. Now, keep in mind, he's seen Nancy at the summer retreat. He's now driven to her house, but he's dating Michelle that he met at Timberline. So he drives to Nancy's house where suicide threat number 3 would happen, to where he would threaten to shoot himself over things that were occurring in his family and in his life in general. October 16th, 1990, Jermey would begin school at Richardson High School. He's moved in with his father. He's changed schools. Now, according to the assistant principal, most of Jermey's troubles at the high school came from truancy and an alleged attack or alleged comments he made against his algebra teacher. From October to Christmas break of that year, Jermey's locker would be searched 3 times. During those searches, they would find bottles of whiteout, mainly used for huffing. They would also find a deer leg, kind of weird. They would find a Cults That Kill book, along with other books on like childhood and fatherhood and stuff like that. The next month, November 1990, Jermey would tell his fellow classmates about his fascination and his preoccupiedness with suicide. Now, someone, more likely more than one classmate, would report this to the school counselor. Now, it's unknown whether they were even in a position to help him because of his severity, or what the treatment would have been, suggested by the counselor. December 1990, Jermey would attend regular classes before being put on in-school suspension. Now, during this time, he would allegedly steal money from a cash box after a high school basketball game. He would also get reported to the administration over alleged threats that he had made about his math and English teacher. Now, the assistant principal would go on to report these alleged threats to the Richardson police, along with the deer leg that was found in Jermey's locker, the Cults That Kill books. Not only that, Jermey would be taken out of his math teacher's class, Mrs. Neal, for pretty much making a comment to some students along the lines of, wouldn't it be funny if someone just came in here and blew her head off? Now, Mrs. Neal, the math teacher, was never physically assaulted. She was never had these things said to her directly. These were all just comments that Jermey would make to his classmates about her. Now, Jermey would get arrested by the Richardson police for theft. And while he's in custody, the police ask him about these alleged threats that he's made to his teachers. And Jermey would go on to tell them that, yes, he had made general comments, but nothing to what was being brought up against him. That the stories and the comments he had made were just twisted up by his fellow classmates. They would then turn to Joseph, the police would, about Jermey's condition. And Joseph would inform them that Jermey had been admitted to Timberline in the early 90s for severe psychological treatment, and that he was currently looking into other forms of treatment that he could get for his son for help. But he did ask police if they would please report the theft and the alleged comments to the juvenile system so that maybe he could, get some help from them. The remainder of the year, Jermey would be confined to in-school suspension. He wouldn't be allowed to take classes with the rest of the kids. Now, sometimes after Christmas break, he would tell his girlfriend, Michelle, hey, look what I got for a Christmas present. I got a gun. But this was a lie. In actuality, Jermey had stolen the gun that belonged to his dad's girlfriend out of one of her drawers. What you're looking at in front of you is Richardson High School, the high school Jermey would have attended and been put on in-school suspension. Now, early January 1991, several days before his death, Michelle, Jermey's then girlfriend, told Jermey that she may be pregnant, but she didn't think he was the father. Jermey went on to tell Michelle that, hey, I'll die for you. I'll do anything for you, which kind of concerned Michelle. So she calls Wanda, who is Jermey's mother, to report that Jermey was sounding strange on the phone. She thought something was wrong with him. But she really felt like when she got off the phone that Jermey's mom didn't really show any concern about that at the time. Jermey would also begin to start writing and sending suicide letters as well as tapes to his closer friends, but these letters and tapes wouldn't arrive until after he committed suicide. Now, fast forward a few days to January 7th, which is the day before Jermey's death. Jermey would attend counseling after school and wait for his father to come and pick him up. He would also call his first love, the girl he met, Nancy, and told her that this would be the last time that they would talk, because him and his dad were going to be leaving for Tokyo, Japan the next day. He also told Nancy that he had acquired an expensive ring from her and would be mailing it along with a letter the next day. Now, this ring is a ring that he actually stole from his father's girlfriend's house. They talked for about an hour or so. His dad would pick him up from school, and he would later report to police that Jermey was actually in good spirits that day, that he was upbeat, he was normal, nothing out of the ordinary. The next day, on January 8th, 1991, at 7:30 a.m., before leaving for school, Jermey would call Nancy again and tell her that him and his dad were going to be leaving for Japan at 3 p.m. They would talk about 20 minutes, nothing real long, nothing really in depth. But Nancy would later recall after Jermey's death that day he was really in good spirits. He didn't even talk or even mention suicide or anything out of the ordinary like that.
At 8:20, he would drop his backpack off at in-school suspension, and he met some other students, gave them the rings and the letters, and said, hey, these need to be mailed. They report that he didn't seem depressed, but he was happy. He was hugging teachers. He was in the hallways thanking the teachers and acting joyous, and it was very unusual for his personality, and people remember that about him. Now, sometime after 9:35, he walked into his English class, room B201. He was handed a hall pass by his teacher to go to the office. He left the room, got something from his locker. Now, people presume it was the gun he had stolen. He returned to the room, put the hall pass back on his teacher's desk, and depending on what source you're looking at, it's stated that he said a couple of different things. Some people say he said, "Miss, this is what I went for," or "This is what has to be done," or "This is what I really need." Regardless, after he made a statement, he placed a gun in his mouth and shot himself.
Brittany remembers it like it was yesterday.
Shock and fear went into my mind. All the students, we ran to the back of the room and kind of huddled together. Should I look? And I did. I looked. I don't know why. I don't know why I looked, but I did. And I'll never forget.
After that took place, it was stated that there was no time to react. Now, he did this in a room in front of his teacher and 30 students. I mean, it's horrible enough that he would feel like he needed to commit suicide and end his life, but it's also horrible that it was done in this manner, and it kind of scarred everybody that took witness to this. Now, there were rumors that some of the students of this particular English class had bullied Jermey, but there was no further investigation into that part of it. Jermey's death brought on a news media circus, and Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam saw all these reports of this 15-year-old dying the way he did. Now, this story, along with another that was Eddie's personal experience, would go on to create the song Jermey.
I actually knew somebody in junior high school in San Diego, California, that did the same thing, just about. He didn't take his life, but ended up shooting up an oceanography room. I remember being in the halls and hearing it. So it's a bit about this kid named Jermey, and it's also a bit about a kid named Brian that I knew.
Pearl Jam was an up-and-coming band at this time, but now, I mean, everybody knows Pearl Jam. They would go on to win several awards after the album come out. Now, it was very controversial with the song Jermey, because the video that they created initially did show a teenage boy go into a classroom, put a gun in his mouth, and you see that. But with MTV's restrictions, they had to cut that particular scene and kind of focus more on the top of Jermey's head, and then went to his fellow classmates that were covered in blood. And with their posturing, it almost depicted as if Jermey turned the gun on the classmates and not himself. So for a long time, I mean, people thought that until the person that created the video, I think he did like a Rolling Stones interview or something in 1997, and he basically said that was one of the things that angered him the most, was people misinterpreting the video.
The original music video was censored in parts so it could be played on MTV back in the day, but an uncensored version of the video was remastered in HD and released on Pearl Jam's official YouTube channel.
The song Jermey basically blew up. Now, this was a nightmare for the family, because they said that it was loosely based on fact. But they, Pearl Jam, being a band, said that the song was a work of art and really did not set out to provide a realistic image of Jeremy.
Like I said, I've been talking about the true meaning behind it, and I hope no one's offended. And it's all, believe me, I think of Jeremy when I sing it.
And here he is. Final resting place of Jermey Wade Delle, the inspiration for Jeremy. In 1996, there would be a student in the state of Washington that would fatally shoot his teacher and 2 other students. And where did he get the idea? He said he was inspired by Pearl Jam's Jeremy.
Well, that does it for Jeremy. Jermey Delle and Pearl Jam's Jeremy, whichever way you want to look at it. A little bit of both, I guess. Big shout out to our Road Warrior patron VIP, the Crip Lady. Thank you for your monthly donation. Greatly helps us out on keeping these videos coming. And thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave us some comments. We love interacting with you guys. Subscribe if you hadn't already, and check us out on all social. If this is a social media platform out there, we probably got it. Exit to Adventure. Just look it up. You'll find us somewhere. Any last words?
I do want to say that if you are a person that is having any kind of suicidal thoughts, please reach out and get help.
Yeah, don't go through it alone. Don't go through anything alone. Not just suicide or depression. There's always somebody out there to talk to, whether it be professionally, if you can't talk to a family or a friend, find somebody. Find somebody on the street corner or something, you know. Just don't go through it alone. That's all we're saying. Until next time, we'll catch you guys down the road at the next exit.
Keep it spooky.
Later.